Hail, hail, the Celts are here, and what the hell do we care now? We're just finally top of the league, and maybe it feels like it's not just a hollow place on the leaderboard, on the league table. We're actually up there now. We've got clearance, we've got distance, and we're running into the split. We're running into a cup semi-final with destiny firmly in both hands now. We're here for the CeltsAreHere Flagship podcast. I'm Quinny, and as ever, I'm joined by Josh. Josh, good to see you, mate. Hail, hail.
Good to see you, Quinny. Obviously, a couple of weeks hiatus here in the pod, but no better time to return. Two good results for Celtic at the weekend, so a lot to get our teeth stuck into today.
And back after a bit of a holiday, bit of a hiatus from self, we've got Meehall. Mike, good to see you, mate. Hail, hail.
Oh, superb. Glad to be back. It wasn't a holiday for me. It was a holiday for my parents, which just meant I didn't watch any Celtic. So I didn't have any time to do any podcasts because I didn't have anything to talk about. But what I heard was we were rubbish and now we're good again. And I'm going to take that as because I started watching again. So there you go. I finally get time to watch. We got good. That's how it works.
There's many Celtic fans that have that about like when they go to games and stuff like that. You just, I'm all about that, which is good. But this weekend we were at home. We had a full packed stadium. We were in good voice. We were in good spirit, despite the weather or alongside the weather or whatever. And St Mirren were in town, who have been a bit of a banana peel team for us over the last couple of seasons. Certainly, they're definitely a team that could score the first goal and just make the afternoon a bit more difficult or unpleasant than it needs to be. But we had, quite a convincing result, and it continues that upward trajectory from a low point we've probably had over the last couple of months or so. So definitely, I think a lot of Celtic fans will be feeling good about tuning in and catching a good performance this weekend. Yeah. But Josh, for yourself, mate, how do you feel coming out of the game?
I think, obviously, it was a game of two halves. The first 45, not too great. Wind playing a bit of a part in the play. Had like two shots on goal, and I think they were both blocked from Hatate and O'Reilly. So a difficult first half, and it was quite similar to the Livingston game away a couple of weeks ago, where it was 0-0 at half time. A couple of chances spurned in the first half, and then second half teams come out, and it's a Rio Hatate goal that kick-starts things, and it was a brilliant finish from him outside of the boot, I think it was, right into the top left corner, and then you obviously get the second a couple of minutes later through Kyogo, and Idah comes on and makes a good impact yet again off the bench. So I think there's a lot of positives to take. You shouldn't understate the clean sheet as well. Defence has been a bit ropey at times this season. I think we'll all admit that. We've had kind of partnerships that are coming in and out of the team. Obviously, Scales didn't play in this one. It was Maik Nawrocki who got the nod at the back. So positive they get to keep a clean sheet there. Carter Vickers and Nawrocki playing together. So I think there's a lot of things you can take out of this game that were really good. Even without the result on Sunday, I think we'd all be coming on here singing Celtic's praises and being in a positive mood still. And obviously, Ross County only bettered that at the weekend. But no, very good and very pleased with how the team's progressing at the minute. Hatate coming back in has been massive over the last few weeks. He's had the impact you'd want him to make. He's exactly the type of key player you need at this time of year going into the run-in. Scored obviously a peach at the weekend, and he's just going from strength to strength, and his fitness is only improving as well. You look at the games he's been playing. Livingston, I think he played like 65, then Ibrox, he's got more minutes, and then at the weekend he got even more minutes. So it's just kind of building up his fitness as the weeks go on. And I said it last time we were on after the Livingston game, I forgot how good Hatate was until he comes back into the team and the difference he makes just playing those one-touch passes in the midfield that no one else even attempts at times. Going forward, he makes a difference as well. So he's been massive in this upturn in Celtic form over the last few weeks, and he's one of many positives at the minute.
Game of two halves is it's a cliche, right? But when you've got a win like that, that was actually the case because you could really see it that they, even when they rattled the ball at each other, it just wasn't going.
Yeah,
and that just makes if you're St Mirren and all you want to do is keep the game as slow and boring as possible, and having a team you're kicking into a big wind kind of does that for you. So, and it was so noticeable in the second half. It was as if they'd been told to speed up and play faster, but I don't think they actually had. I think it was just the way that the game was going. And suddenly St Mirren couldn't get the ball out because every time they punted it, it just blew back in their faces. And I was very critical at halftime. I thought, this looks like they're playing in slow motion. Then I realized, 5 minutes of the second half, I thought, they actually were playing in slow motion. That's kind of the problem. And to say as well, that first half, Yang was dreadful, absolutely dreadful. And I don't think Nawrocki, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt that he wasn't particularly fit, and I hope that he can just sort of build into it because his ball work was way better. But every time the ball went over his head, he looked, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. And in fairness to St Mirren, the kid who plays up front for them is pretty quick. And if you've just come back from not playing it particularly frequently, and suddenly you've got every ball's going down the channel with a big wind behind it, and you're having to chase after it, it's probably... I'd hate to have seen what Liam Scales would have looked like underneath it, put it that way, given that he's not very fast either. But I think we got there in the end, and that's the way that I think about these games, right, is always, when it's one rubbish half and one good half, which is a lot of Celtic this year, I think, what if it had been the other way around? Like, remember the game that we played at Kilmarnock last year when we were 4-0 up at half-time? Nobody goes, well, the second half was shy because 4-0 up at half-time. So I think, well, if we'd have lost the toss or won the toss and made it play the other way around and we had 3-0 at the break, nobody's going to go, well, the second half was a bit of a non-event. You just don't even talk about it. So I think, yeah, you'd rather play for 90 minutes, but if you play well as that for 45 minutes, you'll win every game that you play in Scotland pretty much.
Definitely. I think that seems to be the case a lot this season, though. A game of two halves, even if it's without the wind. You look at Ibrox 2-0 up at the break. Okay, you're going to get a bit of momentum from Rangers coming forward after they go 2-0 down at home in a derby. But it's the same at Livingston as well. Even first half of the season, some of the performances, it was really good for one half. And then second half, it was a bit ropey or vice versa. But like you say, Meehall, you take that if you're winning games. Do you know what I mean? You don't care what, if you're good one half and you score 4 goals, who cares about the other half? So it's good in that sense.
It's a fair point to say as well that, like, we have in that team, you've got Nawrocki, Hatate, and Yang, all of whom haven't been playing every single week. So like they really only have 60 good minutes in them in their legs, which I think is kind of underrated. Like, and that's 3 of your players, including one of your forwards, one of your midfielders, and one of your defenders, and they're all on the same side of the field on the left. Like, that's probably going to be an issue, which there's nothing you can really do about it other than keep them on the field and keep going. Like, if that had been, Maeda, Scales, and Bernardo, for example, Bernardo doesn't play that much either, or someone who'd been playing every week, you probably don't see that sluggishness. It takes them a while to get into it. So I think I'm actually kind of happy that we have the semi-final this week against the, fingers crossed, rubbish Aberdeen, who even their fans think they're not going to win. So that might get an extra amount of time in the legs of those players, because everybody else is at full speed now. They're kind of, we've got 4 or 5 guys still, working up to it. Because as well, I think that was the first 90 he's played, that and Ibrox. So it's looking up in terms of getting the guys on the field at the most important part of the year, right?
I think that was probably one of the things from the game, is like the starting 11, like you mentioned, the guys there haven't featured as much, but there was a few question marks coming into this game, and a few, I don't know if we would say surprise inclusions or whatever. Of course, Nawrocki and Yang, we can add a sniff that they might come in because Maeda and Scales were injured. But Idah scoring off the bench in the derby, and McGregor seemingly back in full training, give or take. There was definitely, I was surprised when I seen the team, from the beginning, seeing like the Yang and Nawrocki coming in, like we mentioned, but the midfield staying the same, and Kyogo retaining his place. And I think Kyogo just about got himself over the line with his goal right before coming off there. But I was quite impressed with this whole left-hand side of the pitch. Hatate, like we mentioned already, I think was the man that was making everything tick for us. But Nawrocki, you definitely seen a lot more out of him than what you get from Scales, in the sense of, like, normally when Scales does come into that like busy part of the pitch where everyone is, he kind of just looks uncomfortable when he gets too close to people in the wrong places or whatever. But Nawrocki just kind of goes by that and just gets into the next line of play, and he just kind of goes forward an extra little bit. He's a bit more comfortable doing that. And I really liked what I seen from the continuity in midfield. I was quite surprised that McGregor didn't come back in, because I thought that was what everyone imagined. But equally, like, having a Tati out there and then seeing what Nawrocki can bring on that left hand side, like, compare that to like what we had earlier this season. And I'm the biggest Scales fan probably going. The Scales and Bernardo on that side of the pitch, or whoever else it might have been over this season, just are nowhere near offering that in terms of just killing a team at home.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's been the case a lot with Maik Nawrocki when he's came into the team this season. He's not had that fear when he gets beyond the halfway line. He's willing to play, whether it be a line splitting pass or a simple ball into Hatate or the left winger. And I think that's why a lot of fans have wanted to see him play rather than Scales, because of the playing the ball out from the back aspect. Not a lot of people are critical of Scales' defending, because that's what he's good at. That's what he was good at with Aberdeen last season. It's just the ball playing aspect of his game that some people have been critical of, including myself. And Nawrocki coming in, it's a bit of a breath of fresh air. when he was signed for what, 4.5, 5 million, you're expecting a guy like that to come into the team straight away and make an immediate impact, and he did until I think it was an injury he got, and then like Lagerbielke, then Scales firmly took his chance in the team. So it's an interesting one, Nawrocki, because Rodgers said after the game at the weekend that hopefully Scales will be okay and it's not too serious. So when he returns to fitness, will it be him who plays again, or will it be Nawrocki who keeps the place? That's going to be an interesting one, because especially after the split, you're going to have games every week. You want to have a bit of continuity, maybe not in the front line in the midfield, but particularly in the back line. These are crucial games. You want to have those solid partnerships developing. Scales and Carter Vickers have got that, but if Nawrocki continues to play, he needs to continually build up that partnership with Carter Vickers that he's not really had throughout the season. But I really rate him, and I've wanted him to play since he's been fit over Scales, firmly because of the ball playing reason. I mean, he was all good at the weekend. Like you say, Meehall, I thought he was a bit ropey sometimes with those balls over the top into the back line, but something that's just match fitness and wind, etc. So with the ball at his feet, he's looked good, and hopefully, I think he'll play the semi-final at the weekend, and hopefully he can take his chance again.
I think the big question is going to be who's the first game after the split, because I think we can wipe Scales out of this weekend. I don't think he's going to play, and then so that's 2 games in a row, and then you go, okay, so if the first game after the split is Kilmarnock away, are you going to throw in Nawrocki there, where it's potentially the next most difficult game? But if it's, if it's Hearts at home or one of the other, it won't be Rangers at home, we don't think. So who's the other one? Complete my sentence here. Who the other home? We've got one more. Dundee at home.
Dundee, something, or is it?
So we have to go with Dundee. Yeah. So who's the fourth team?
Hearts, Dundee.
Hearts, us, Dundee, St Mirren,
Kelly.
So we must have St Mirren at home again.
I think my predictions for the fixtures will be, I think we'll get Kilmarnock at home, and I think we'll have to go to Tynecastle, and then I think we'll have to go to either Dens Park or St Mirren, one of the two. Because when you
let's imagine it's Dens Park away or Dundee at home, right? I reckon you might say, do you know what, Nawrocki, you can have another one, and then that's it. Whereas if it was Kilmarnock away, for example, I think you might be more inclined to say Scales is, because you would also have the opposite problem at Kilmarnock, in which the ball will stop on the pitch, which kind of brings the fact that Liam Scales has got no recovery pace is less of an issue. So I think that's just something we're going to have to keep a watching brief on. And I think what might become a big deal as well, if you look at where the games are going to be won, certainly this is my opinion anyway, we're going to have the bulk of the ball. And I think with maybe including Rangers at home, depends how they play, because they'll probably have to come out and attack, which isn't really their natural game. Like having Palmer back, where he's going to be able to play, if we're going to have 70% of the ball and play in the other team's half, then Lewis Palmer's not a problem at all. If we're going to Ibrox, you want Maeda. If you are home to Dundee and St Mirren and Kilmarnock, then I'm not sure what Maeda really adds. Like, you'd rather have someone who can shoot from distance and cross the ball, and as a first touch that isn't a tackle. I'm not wearing my Maeda shirt today, but I wish I was. I'm a big Maeda guy, but there's horses for courses in this. And I think Palmer coming back and looking pretty, I won't say looking lively, because he's the most kind of one-paced player going, but looking like he's up for it and like he was really having a crack. I don't think he ever doesn't have a crack. He's just quite slow. But I think this could be the sort of games that are his kind of game. And I think 30 minutes of Yang and 60 minutes of him is much better than the other way around, put it that way.
I think on the centre half debate, I was just going to say, if it's Kilmarnock away and it's on the Astro, maybe Carter Vickers being dropped comes into the equation just because of his fitness and injury history. And then if it's Rangers per se,
I've got a point on this.
On you go.
This is how long are we in? 10 minutes? There's some rugby league. No. So I heard, obviously rugby league doesn't really have artificial pitches, but a lot of teams train on them. Mm-hmm. And apparently the biggest cause of injury isn't the artificial pitches, it's swapping from one to the other. So the problem isn't, so when you look at like the Swedish league or the Icelandic league, or me playing on AstroTurf every week when I was living in Germany and Holland, we always played on AstroTurf, never played on grass. Apparently that's the problem. Apparently it's not, if you only play on one and you only play on the other, it's fine. It's when you chop and change, which is why Celtic apparently don't like to change. Like, they have AstroTurfs but don't use them. It's only when they play Kilmarnock that they have them, because they think it's the infrequency. Because someone like Lagerbielke, for example, or Nawrocki grew up in Germany. He's played national stuff his entire life. Like, or who was the one? Was it Starfelt who he signed because he was always said, Jozo could never play in the national turf, whereas he only ever played in the national turf. Christopher Ayer as well, like all these guys, and it was because of the swapping. Anyway, that was my little factual thing I learned last week about fitness.
I think
nice detail.
It'll probably
There
be.
you go.
Kelly will probably.
Rugby league, it's interesting. Who knew?
Kelly will probably be the only plastic pitch next season because Livy are going down, and then apparently Kilmarnock are getting a grass pitch, is what I've heard from. I think it's 2025 onwards, might be. But on Nawrocki, if it's Rangers the first game back at home, now put a question to you: if Nawrocki plays the semi-final and say Scales is fit for the derby, do you play Scales or do you keep on with Nawrocki?
So I actually think, I think a little bit of I think the midfield really does come into this, right? Because again, if you look at the St Mirren game, right, Iwata, again, I think we're all big fans of, and we can see what he gives in the midfield, right? But he actually did nothing in this game, like tangibly. He didn't like sweep up, intercept, win stuff or whatever. He was just like there, allowed Nawrocki, allowed Vickers, allowed fullbacks or whatever to move into that space and go and do their thing. And the biggest criticisms we have of McGregor, for example, is that sometimes he's not affecting the game, he's not doing anything. For Iwata, you can kind of carry him being there if you've got Nawrocki going to run by him, comfortably run by him and be that overload and run. Scales, as we've all agreed, probably that's not his strength, it's more defending. So I think if Scales does come back in the midfield, it maybe makes McGregor, in the defence, beg your pardon, it maybe makes it easier to bring McGregor into the midfield, and you're going to also tell Scales to not do the Nawrocki run and let McGregor try and push McGregor to be his best version of himself again, in that deeper role. Because I think he can do that with Hatate and O'Reilly. He's not had Hatate and O'Reilly together this season, which has maybe held him back in some ways. But I kind of said that there's another video will be on the channel, but I think at the weekend there, maybe a bit of a convenient truth for the manager that McGregor isn't 100% fit and he could just run that midfield again, and not have that difficult decision on his hands. But I think that's maybe the counterpoint to the Scales thing. I think if Scales comes back in, it probably brings McGregor with him. So I don't think Scales and Iwata there are going to be the, as fluid as Nawrocki and Iwata, or we've seen consistency at least from McGregor and Scales.
Mm-hmm. Do you think there's, just as a sort of question back on that, right? If you look at McGregor's weakest point is his mobility, right? And he's coming back from an injury, which anyone who saw him in the derby, you can see severely limited his mobility. Like that, was it the second goal where he sold the jerseys to Yang, and it made Yang look terrible, but it wasn't really his fault. It was a terrible pass, and then he couldn't make that ground up. Whereas Iwata, he almost does that thing where he doesn't need to make tackles because the fact that he runs around means that the ball doesn't go there, or the other person just passes it back the way, and so he never actually gets to the duel. It's not really, it wouldn't come up on a stat sheet, but you could see it that he was running around. And I wonder if you've got if you could think you're going to have 70% of the ball, then play McGregor and it won't matter. But if you think they might have to come forward, they might say, look at that second half and go, okay, we're going to press this lot high. Then having someone who's more press resistant in Nawrocki and someone who covers more ground in Iwata, maybe that's your better option than saying McGregor. McGregor at his best, I would say, he's better than Iwata. But if his weakness is a lack of being able to cover ground and he's coming back off an injury, whereas Iwata, at least he covers ground, and then you could say, well, I guess there was a question at the end of this: is it both of them that you go Iwata and Nawrocki, Scales and McGregor, and you can't really mix them up?
Potentially. Partnerships are a big thing in football. Not even when people are passing together and playing together like you do, but the attributes you offer as well, like you've said there, what Iwata and Nawrocki bring, and then what McGregor and Scales bring. I think with McGregor fitness, it's just so hard to manage because obviously he's the captain and he's been so influential before, and you know what he can bring, particularly in the derbies. But you don't want to risk him at the same time where in the last one a couple of weeks ago he makes an error for a goal, leading to a goal, and you've got a guy in Iwata who's in there who's fully fit, who's been playing, I think come off at 70 minutes at the weekend, but he's been starting and playing more or less every game for the last month or so, over 2 months maybe, and you immediately drop him for McGregor. I know McGregor's the captain, it's just a hard debate that Rodgers is going to have. I don't see McGregor starting at the weekend either in the semi-final, and it's just hard. I honestly don't know what you do with the situation. It's It's good dilemmas to have, though. Like, you'd rather be speaking about this than just having to rely on Iwata to play every week, and relying on someone like Nawrocki or Skills. The fact you've actually got the guys available is really good.
So here's a thought experiment for you. This is what I was thinking about today. Imagine that this derby against Rangers, right, is the first derby of the season, and we know we're going to play Atletico Madrid in 2 weeks. Who would you pick in the 6? Because I would pick Iwata every single time now, based on the inability of McGregor to cover ground. And I think under that logic, you're then saying, okay, so our Rangers going to try and let us have the ball and hit us on the break, which I don't know, if I was them and I knew that Lewis Palmer was going to play left wing, for example, I would be saying, generate high turnovers, get Tavernier up the field, slung it in, because you don't have Maeda running in behind. That would be my, their main way of scoring is going to be that. And so you might say, well, and they can't sit off for 70 minutes like they did the last time that they came to Celtic Park, and probably even longer than 70 minutes, because what's the point? You need to win. A draw doesn't do anything for you. And if Celtic go 1-0 up, then suddenly they've got to score twice and blah, blah, blah. So I think they have to play like that, in which case I would say, get the guy. Do you want the guy who covers ground, or do you want the guy who's more press resistant in McGregor, who could distribute the ball out, and then suddenly you're hitting them on the break with Kyogo against the high line rather than a set line? It's greater tactical minds than mine. We'll have to work this out.
I think what you get from like Iwata and Scales individually, like from passing, and I know they're not in the same combination, but what they both give is like they are very quick and very eager to just give the ball to Hatate, give the ball to Taylor, give the ball to O'Reilly. They don't really want to carry the water. So that in turn, I think is like that's kind of what you're looking for from those guys. And I think for like you say, looking at it for post split for Rangers and all the other games thereafter, like I think consistency is probably the number one thing, but it's like we've had so many slippy, non-clean sheet games, and this kind of, like I said earlier, I think it's a nice, convenient truth where he doesn't really need to have that difficult decision at the moment, because McGregor, how do you keep him out of the team, really? Like, he is, I'm looking at stats now, he's got like 2 or 3 goals this season or something, a couple of assists. He's played every game in midfield for Celtic, top of the table, scoring goals and all the rest of it as a team, so it's like, I don't think it gives us that same defensive protection that we get from Iwata, and then that attacking output. I know the midfield's not been great, we've not been great, but he's been playing every game, and so it's one of those ones where the form's good now because we've got that balance, I think, going in midfield, and that's I think probably it's not so much maybe even McGregor versus Iwata, but it's the overall composition then of like the balance that it brings, balance.
Do you think
midfield?
Do you think there's something in that as well, that Hatate is at his best when he can roam around a bit and lose the ball and not be afraid of it? Which, if he's going to lose the ball in the midfield, would you rather him do that with Iwata behind him or McGregor? Like, if I was stuck picking a Champions League team tomorrow, I probably would pick McGregor one higher up the midfield, or a double pivot with one of McGregor and one of Hatate and O'Reilly in front of them, for exactly that reason. Like, you need one passer and one runner, and at the moment we have one passer and one runner, but we only play one there, so we have to pick which one we prefer. Which home to a shit team might be McGregor, but away home to a good team might be Iwata.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the other part of the we've kind of spoken about Palmer once or twice as well, right? I'm not Palmer's biggest fan at the moment this season again, and I don't think he's done. I think he maybe lost a fan or two in the changing room after the game at the weekend. He was through 1-on-1, doesn't score. Zach Hemming makes a save, and everything that happened thereafter, I just see what he does, and I look at his face, and I think he is raging that goalkeeper has saved him there, and he's personally saying, "I'm about to try and mug you off now." Taking a touch and then trying to take the shot there was just the highest order selfish, like he's got 3 bodies running and you see them all with their arms out afterwards, like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you didn't look at anything or try. You just tried to shoot from there, and it's like, I don't know, man. It's just something like, when we've got all the ball and we're going to be in the final third, the weapons he's got, or the gunpowder he's got in his boots is brilliant. He's got a great eye for it, but his attitude is stinking, man, in so many ways.
Yeah, I think one thing Palmer does have is a bit of greediness and selfishness in his game, and I think it's frustrated a lot of fans. The way he always used to cut in, or still does cut inside, and he'll run into traffic and lose the ball. rather than playing a simple pass to like Taylor who's nearby him or the inside midfielder who's there. But what he does give you, like he says, sometimes a bit of individual brilliance. Some of the goals he scored, you can't deny his numbers this season are quite good, but his play style just frustrates a lot of people, and probably rightly so. For that reason, he's not very fast, as he's not the quickest player. I don't think he's going to play the Rangers game because of the fact Tavernier, the threat he brings, I think it'll either be Yang or, like you were saying off air, Quinny, it could be even Kyogo in the left wing against Rangers. I don't think Palmer's going to start that game. Listen, if he scores a hat-trick the game before it, then he could do. But I don't think he starts it. But he is probably, on the ball, one of the better wingers at the club when he does the right things with the ball and makes the right decisions. He's got the ability, but does he make the right pass? Does he take a shot on when it's not there? Yes, he probably does. But that's just something he needs to manage himself, and the manager needs to get the best out of him.
Do you think there's something in it that he's like, he is big time, right? Whether he is or not is another thing. He thinks he is.
Yeah,
Everything about him suggests that he thinks he's really good at football, which, if I was a diminutive Central American number 10, I certainly would think like that, right? With my little earrings. I would be socks around the ankles thinking that's Pablo Aimar. Pablo Aimar was a footballer from the past, Josh. But I realise more topical references might be needed. But if you think of his best, when you think of his best appearances in the Celtic jersey, they have tended to be either with the game on the line or in bigger games. Like in the Champions League, he was good. His first big involvement when we were meandering to a draw at Motherwell, comes on off the bench, changes the game, like stuff like that. I think when you're in a situation 3-0 up at home to St Mirren, then it's like, yeah, he's going to do shit like that, and it's going to be frustrating. But if we needed a goal in the last 5 minutes, he'd be one of the first players I turn to, because I think he's got his ceiling to do that sort of stuff is high, and he's also got the confidence to try it. Whereas I look at someone like Yang and I go, he might run around a bit more, but like that boy could be.
He'll miss.
He'll miss. Yeah, I wouldn't. He's got a bit of the. I wouldn't trust him to finish anything. Whereas Palmer, you think if it comes down to a question of technique or whatever, he'll have it. He won't even think about it. He'll bash it in like he did. I actually saw I rewatched the Atletico home draw today. It just came up on my YouTube, so I was like, here we go. But like stuff like that, that moment is his moment, and I think maybe that's something for the second half or whatever. But when it came to Jota, you thought Jota was going to score. He's got a bit of that about him. Like he'll do something in the big game, which is why I think he'll get picked. But I think I wouldn't be surprised if he starts and scores on Saturday and then is rubbish the week after and then he starts and scores again. Put it that way.
I think
he will raise the game.
The counter argument you've got to the thing with Palma is if you trust him in that like last minute of a game, say you need a goal to win the title, right? Do you trust him in the sense that he's in the edge of the box or he's out wide in the kind of position he was at the weekend, and there's 3 options on last minute of the game, you need a goal, and he does what he did at the weekend and puts it into Rosed? Or do you trust him to make the pass with the player, his teammate, in a better position where he's going to score? I don't know if I would trust him in that respect.
Is it on his left or his right foot?
Exactly. He's got 2 right. Exactly. He's only got 1 right foot, doesn't he? Or 2 right feet. He's
definitely a coin toss on what he does there, doesn't he? But I'm surprised to see him for the final goal, Adam Idah's goal. He does actually try and square it for Paulo Bernardo, who absolutely shits the bed, and Adam Idah gets him out of jail by poking the ball over the line. And that's now 7 goals and 2 assists in 10 league games for super January loan signing sub, whatever we're going to call him, Adam Idah. And I think, like Josh kind of touched on it there, there's a video. It's probably on the channel by the time any user listening to this podcast, but like I would love I want to see Idah starting. I would, after the form he's been on, I'm surprised that Kyogo did retain his place at the weekend. And with the absence we have of Maeda, we spoke about Yang and Palma to some extent, their deficiencies and strengths. I think the best guy in the club to do the Dyson Maeda tribute act is Kyogo. And Kyogo has the positives in his game that Maeda certainly lacks, in terms of like Maeda's one-on-one with a keeper from that left-hand channel, or Kyogo would be in the same situation. You're probably much happy to think Kyogo there. So that's something I don't know if we would see that against Aberdeen necessarily, because I think you might try and play Palma Yang, that kind of thing, but certainly for the derby or in the lead up to the derby, I'd love to see Idah and Kyogo together.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a good shout. I really like Idah since he's joined. He immediately made an impact. He's made the exact impact you want from a January loan signing. And even if he doesn't sign for Celtic permanently beyond the summer, if Celtic win the league, he's going to be labelled as a successful signing based on the goals he's scored and his record. You look at Easter Road, 2 penalties, steps up to the plate and scores at the last minute to win. Does it at Fir Park as well a couple of weeks later. Big goal at Ibrox and a couple of goals here and there against Dundee and then St Mirren at the weekend. He's been a great signing for Celtic. I want him to be brought in permanently. Do I think it's going to happen? I'm not entirely sure. Norwich have the ball in their court. Let's be honest. You look at, they didn't want to put a buy option in for a reason because they know they have a talent. And 6 million plus, that is the fee that has been mentioned. I think, seeing this day and age, for a striker from a higher end championship team who's 23 years old, quite talented, as we know, Brendan Rodgers is a big fan of him. I feel you're not going to get any better for the price. If you're going to pay lower, you're going to get a lower standard. He does proven already. He's done very well in a Celtic shirt. He loves the club, clearly. The guy's grew up in Ireland and his family and his friends are all Celtic fans. It was just coming out in the paper this morning and saying when he went back to Cork during the international break, he got a hero's welcome in his local pub and his local Celtic supporters club. And he's saying he didn't realise how big Celtic was until he joined the club and recognises that you get stopped in the street everywhere, no matter where you are. You see the shirts everywhere. So he seems to have embraced the club and the feel around the place. And I think that only bodes well if he wants to stay beyond the summer, because look at what he's doing. And like Giakoumakis before, he wasn't content with staying on the bench and playing second fiddle at times to Kyogo. So far in the games he's played, Idah seems to have been okay with that. Even though he's on loan and the sole purpose of going out on loan is to play games, he has been on the bench a couple of times when he perhaps shouldn't have been, but he's shown the attitude to, at the weekend, for example, come off the bench and score a goal and make the impact. That's the past 2 games now he's scored off the bench, and it would be harsh on him not to play the semi-final on Saturday, but he has the attitude that if he doesn't, he can come off the bench and make an impact anyway. So I'm a big advocate of him. I'm a big fan of him. I would sign him up permanently. I'm part of the Adam Idah Stan fan group, so hopefully we can get a bit of movement on that in the summer. But on here and now and the focus on current matters, he's been great and he's scored some big goals.
Can I counterpoint that? Because I'm not.
Oh no.
Adam Idah is currently on 7 goals.
Yep.
From 5 non-penalty XG. I guess he does take penalties, so 5.8 XG, which suggests it's quite unsustainable that he'll stay that much above where he is. Mm-hmm. If you expect a guy over the course of, he's played 10 games for us, over the course of 40 games, you wouldn't expect him to score, 4 times 7 is
28.
14, 21, 28 goals. That'd be off 20 XG, so you'd expect him to score 7 goals more than expected. I'd say he's on a bit of a hot streak. I'd say also, 6 million, right? I understand what you mean, in today's day and age, blah, blah. Yeah. The Championship is one of the least efficient markets to shop in. It's a terrible market. And if you want a good example of that, I present to you Glasgow Rangers Football Club, full of players from the Championship, and their previous manager, Michael Beale, who signed loads of players in the Championship, most of whom were shy. I think it's a real inefficient place to shop. 6 million, Kyogo was 4? So we can definitely find players. Mm-hmm. I think there's also a ceiling issue. I think Adam Idah is about as good as he's going to be. 23, played enough games. I don't know if he's going to massively kick on. Whereas you could go and get somebody from a different league who maybe either is younger or the same age but hasn't been exposed to that level of football. If we went into the Champions League next year and Kyogo injured and you had to play Adam Idah, I would be cacking myself. Whereas if you got, I don't know, Giakoumakis is a good example because Giakoumakis was 27. He played in the Netherlands. He played in Greece, better leagues. Played in big clubs as well. He, I thought, could fit. He would have the mentality, and indeed he did score in the Champions League. Did miss a few as well, but that's kind of what he did.
Mm-hmm.
I think the pros for Adam Idah is happy to be second best.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't think he's going to play ahead of Kyogo every week, and that's a good thing because he's not. Kyogo's clearly going to be our number 1 striker. We've kind of had this problem that you either have to have someone like O, who he like knows he's the second best and kind of happy to do what he does. And you've got someone like Idah who knows he's second best. Fine. Giakoumakis never wanted to be second best, which was kind of good for him, but bad for Celtic. So fair enough, you like. I just think 6 million for a guy who's never going to be your first choice striker. Like you could go and get, I haven't checked who the top scorer in the Polish league is or whatever, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There will be players out there who are of a higher ceiling than Adam Idah, who are less than 6 million. Whether you would trust Celtic to find that person or not is a different thing.
Yeah,
I think there's a thing about what you already have you don't want to lose. Yeah. Like there's a I can't remember what it's called. I heard someone mention it in a different Celtic podcast actually, and I was like, that is exactly right. Which is you look at a guy, he's got 7 goals in 10 games, and you go, here you go, this guy's going to be great.
Yeah.
But I think it's a bit of a hot streak. I think he's a great loan signing, and I would leave it at that.
It's Matthew.
It was 2 million that signing.
2 million, yeah, definitely you would, wouldn't you? 6 million, it is a bit steep. You look at what we get Jota and Carter Vickers for, it was round about the same fee.
Is he as good as them? Absolutely not.
No, but
and he's in a position that you would value more, I would think, than striker.
That's fair enough. But see, at the same time, you make the point about someone from, say, the Polish league or whatever it is that guy who's just finished top scorer there going to be happy coming into Celtic like the Giakoumakis type figure and playing second fiddle to Kyogo? I don't think he is. You make the point about the Champions League. It's a very fair argument. I'd be fine starting Idah in a Champions League group stage game at home. Quinny, what do you think?
I'm definitely saying Adam Idah. That's definitely where I'm at the moment. But I always say that immediately after, not for £6 million, but like we need to be going back to the negotiating table and getting this like under 4. Ideally, is where you want the starting point to be. Somewhere 2, 3 would be brilliant. Because I think the Rangers goal for me, and I know it didn't obviously ultimately end up in the victory of that match, but that's a big goal, and if he can, I think his ceiling is higher than maybe the data would show from his career to this point, to be honest. And I also do think that what he is showing coming off the bench against them, and from even just the stuff coming up and being an impact signing immediately, is he can work in our system, he can work in our league, and also we want players with a better ceiling for the ones that we're going to sell on, totally. But not everyone will probably be sold on for mass amounts of profit. If you know what I mean, we've kind of done that to some extent, perhaps with signing up the likes of like Welsh and Ralston, whatever. There's a little kind of core back squad there, as it were. But Adam Idah at 23, like if you're going to sign this guy and imagine, right, well, he's going to play for us, like he will play for us for 4 or 5 seasons in the centre forward role until we're done with him, until maybe then someone better comes along in that time. We've got that freedom of, well, if no one better comes along, then we know that this guy's going to be cracking. And I get kind of, I don't know if it's the Norwich thing somehow or whatever, but I get a wee bit of the Gary Hooper vibes a wee bit as well. Just like it's a guy that's just like a scorer, he's just like a goal scorer. You can play him 90% of matches and he'll probably find the back of the net for you. Europe was maybe the odd exception against the elite teams here and there. But at 23, he maybe has the room to grow to, get a couple of goals in a group stage, especially the way the group stages will be built now. So the Rangers goal totally sold me on Idah. I think it's that those games, those types of goals, those are the difference makers. I think between average and potential to be above average for some guys.
Yeah, it's like you look at when we played Rangers at Ibrox last season, towards the end of last season, lost 3-0. Rangers go 1-0 up within 3 minutes. Todd Cantwell. And then Celtic run up the park. The ball's played across goal. Adam Idah 1-on-1 with the goalkeeper. I don't even know who it was. Was it Butland? It wasn't Butland last season.
No, McCausland, I think.
McCausland? McGregor? I think.
No, what was the other kick goal? The one he passed it straight to
McCrory.
Might have been McCrory.
McCausland, he's the attacker.
Yeah, we Tinkerbell, Ross McCausland. Comes at the edge of the box to O, and it's 1-on-1 situation, and he fluffs his lines and he scuffs it, and it goes right out for a by kick. That's the difference between a player like you say, Quinny, him and Adam Idah. Idah takes a chance. Okay, they're probably 2 different types of opportunities at 2 different types of the game, but when it mattered, he stepped up. And there's still a lot of games for him to step up. Listen, he could go between now and the end of the season and not score, and suddenly the tune changes. But if he keeps up his current record, then I think it's very hard to argue against not signing him for the price.
We do the whole. Do you remember what we did with Edward as well? But after Edward did all that, we then didn't play him for ages. We kind of started to hide him. If you remember, He's maybe a wee bit injured here and there, but we didn't play him as much, and then we managed to get, PSG didn't give us any funny business with activating the clause and all the rest of it. But he was still expensive, obviously. So I don't know. As soon as the league's wrapped up, I don't know. Maybe I don't know. It's one of those ones. I think 6 million is too much. I think Meehall, you're totally right on that one. Like 6 million quid in the European and the world market can get you 2 guys like that. Part of the problem is we've done that already, and we kind of do want to move away from that. So if we are spending 6 on 1, then maybe we want. Like, I think Idah does give you some of the certainty you want for your money at that price point, but I do think it's too much to pay for him. But equally, if we are going to spend 6 million on 1, my hope would be we would get somebody that has a real track record on the court.
Yeah. I'll put it this way: if you give me 6 million to spend on him or Bernardo, who I think would be especially if you know that you're going to lose O'Reilly, potentially Hatate, I'd be giving it to Bernardo 100 times out of 100. So in terms of who I think is a better use of your money, better sell-on value, better all that sort of stuff. And not only do I think that, I think in a rare occasion, me and Peter Lowell will think the same thing. Like, I can't see us spending 6 million on a guy who isn't going to play every single week. Like, and I would be very annoyed if we spend it on someone from Norwich because it's such an overvalued bad market. But
that's the comment section for this one. Who is the better you have 6 million to spend on one. Who is the better £6 million signing? PB, Paulo Bernardo, or gets the job done, Adam Idah?
Or
Are you going to call? I thought you were going to call him AI, like he wasn't really sentient.
The other question.
In the comments, guys. We'll talk about it on the next one. We'll see if there's a distinct landslide one way or the other. Who's the better £6 million signing?
Celtic have got the money in the bank. Would you be willing to spend 12 million on both? Especially if Celtic qualify for the Champions League, you look at the money you're going to get from that. Would you be happy?
You're going to look at who just won the Bundesliga and the 35 million pound release clause that Jeremy Frimpong, who isn't as good as James Tavernier, remember? One of the great. Thanks to everybody who bookmarked that tweet. So if you saw me tapping away there, I was trying to look at who the top scorer in the Polish league was, but he's 30 years old. And I've subsequently thought who the top scorer in the Greek league was, and both of them are old. But I can give you that they're the two of the top ones. One's called Moron, who plays for Aris, and another one's called Ponce. Lorenzo Moron, who plays for Aris, and another one's called Ponce. So I hope, for the sake of memes everywhere, that neither of those sign for us. Both are too old. But Daniel Podence scored 7 in 22 for Olympiacos, though. Could have been played for Celtic.
Luis Palma, Daniel Podence.
On the kind of note that you did kind of give us there, right? 12 million for both of them. This isn't really in the run order, but I sent it to you right before we came on. It's been reported from goal.com earlier today that Liverpool will not stand in the way of CeltsAreHere if he wants to leave the club in pursuit of more first-team minutes, which has alerted, according to goal.com, Nottingham Forest, who already have signed 4 goalkeepers this season. 4 goalkeepers have played for Nottingham Forest this year that they have signed, and they will be probably relegated and FFP'd out of the hoo-ha for the next eternity, or Celtic. Now, I think the fee quoted in this was 14, right? I think we would pay 14 for CeltsAreHere when it was like 18 to 25, the reports were, I think, in January. I don't think we're in that market. But I think if it can come into that 12, 14 range, I think CeltsAreHere, something like that, is probably where the bulk of the resources go, which is why I really want the Idah fee negotiated down. Because I think if you can get Idah and CeltsAreHere for not 12, to answer your question, Josh, for like 16, 15, I would do that.
Yeah, I don't think we get CeltsAreHere. I don't think we get him. I can't see. The record is 9 million for Odsonne Edouard. That's the most Celtic have spent on a player. I can't see us going out and breaking that this summer, unless it's for like 10 or 11. I can't see us breaking it. Maybe that's just me being a bit negative, just because of how transfer windows in the past have gone, where it's all built up. There's the same last summer. You remember the news articles, everything coming out. It's going to be a big summer for Celtic, £50 million players. And then one of his first press conferences back, Brendan Rodgers says that's never going to happen. We're never going to spend 15, 20 million pounds on a player. For that reason, I don't think we're going to sign CeltsAreHere. I think if there's a lower-end Premier League team that comes in for him, let's be honest, they'd probably beat us to signing every day. And I think there's probably not better options you could get out there, because you look at the amount of senior games he's played for Liverpool. It's not that many. It's not as much as you would like from a keeper of his age. This is just going off the top of my head. Listen, you might look up his stats and I might be wrong. But
he has got more recently. Alisson's been out for a
yeah,
month.
he has played.
I've got it in front of me here, so I'm going to strike with you on this. Do you want me to just tell you how many it is?
Yeah, I'll guess. Well, that's
good, because I'll check on Wikipedia so we can do better than that.
Tell me his age. Is he, what is he?
25. It's 25.
25. I'll say 50.
50. What, 5-0?
5-0.
It's not as many as that.
Oof.
It is. Oh, here we go.
This is what he's played over the last 6 months.
Oh, so I've got his league appearances as 15. It is actually 26.
26.
Included, so that's 10 in the Premier League, 8 in the Europa League, 2 in the FA Cup, 6 in the League Cup, plus another 12 for Ireland. So I think at 25, coming out of a Liverpool system, he's clearly good enough to play, like, Jurgen Klopp trusted to play for Liverpool. I think if you could get him for 12 million and he's your keeper for 4 years, probably retains a resale value, plays in the Champions League, undisputed number one for Ireland, I'd sign him. I think that's. Yeah, I think there is a probably. I don't know that would sell 50 million for one player. Yeah, it's quite a lot. But I think if there was a player of a profile that I would spend that money on, goalkeeper who would probably stay with you for 4 years and retain sell-on value.
Yeah,
like that seems to me like the business decision would be good. I think there's the other aspect to it is that so obviously everyone thinks that we're cashed up, right? But assuming that we make the Champions League, we are definitely going to sell Matt O'Reilly for serious money, probably the most we've ever sold anyone for. You don't think?
Nah, man. I think we will sell people for serious money in January. But I think like O'Reilly, O'Reilly's probably done enough to get the interest to get a move, right? But I think the teams that would come for O'Reilly probably, and I know we've seen this before with players, and I'm probably going to sound like an idiot for saying it, but I don't think if Man United came in for Matt O'Reilly, I don't think he would go to Man United. I don't think he would go to like
Atletico Madrid.
Atletico Madrid, probably. I don't think he'd go to Atletico Madrid. I don't think they'll come back for him. I said that before, and they've been continuously linked to him, so I'm kind of going against the narrative. But I don't think they are coming back for him. I think they fancy.
Well, they did sign the other kid whose name I can't remember, the Romanian, but there was no, was he Dutch? I can't remember.
The Belgian.
They signed Belgian. Yeah, they signed somebody else, but assume that I would say that he has achieved, having been probably our best player in the Champions League, close to it last year. Plus, let's say we go and win the title again this year. He's won everything he's going to win at Celtic. He's had the 2.5 years that we expect out of the player. I'd say go and we cash. That's the time I would cash in on him. Like, I'd love he stayed because I think he isn't going to get any worse. He'll probably even get better with one more Champions League. But if you're saying you can sell him for, what's our record, 27? Say it's 30 to Atletico Madrid, 30 million euros, and you can sign Bernardo for 6 and a goalkeeper for 14.
And Adam Idah for 6 million.
because let me tell you for why. Because I think Bernardo is a good talent. He's very tactical. He's very good in Europe, especially. Better the game, the better Bernardo is, I think. I know you don't agree with me, but you think William Scales is good, so you can have him. I'll give you 1 million for William Scales. And then you got, I think McGregor can play further forward. I don't trust him to play at the base of midfield anymore. And I said, you know what? You can play whichever side you want. Hatate, you can play the other, and there's your best. You've got Bernardo, McGregor, Hatate for those 3 roles. You've still got, you can sign another one to go forward. You can say Odin Holm, you've had a year. You can, I don't know what Odin Holm's even doing now. That occurred to me this morning. I was like, I wonder if he's nice.
He was in there. Odin Holm
was he the squad?
He was in Monaco the week before the derby, I think. I seen it on his Instagram story. It was like the Wednesday or the Tuesday before we played Rangers.
Is it some sort of convention of right-wing lunatics? I don't follow him on Instagram.
Exactly.
He's talked himself out of a follow from me, I'm afraid. After 10 seconds after signing for us.
I think
neckbeards everywhere.
On the point this summer, I think the only player Celtic are at risk of losing for big money is Matt Riley or Cameron Carter-Vickers. potentially if big money comes in for him. I don't think it will. But I think the highest risk you're going to lose is Matt Riley. No one's going to come in for Rio Hatate due to the recent injury issues. You look at Maeda, Palma, Kuhn, Yang, no one's really interested in signing them, no disrespect to the guys. You look at everywhere else in the squad. The only key player that you're probably at most risk of losing is Matt Riley. A lot of people have said over the last couple of weeks or since Christmas his form has not been great. 3 goals and 3 assists in his last 7 games is a decent return. And he's still doing the business for Celtic as much as there's been this narrative of a drop-off. Okay, maybe a couple of games.
A drop-off from being the absolute best player in the league by miles down to just one of the best players in the league is, I mean, it might be a drop-off, but I'll still take it. Yeah,
I know, exactly. I don't think he's had that significant of a drop-off of what a lot of people are making out to be. I'm with you, Quinny. I don't think Athletic will come back in for him in the summer. If anyone does come in from it, maybe a team in England. A lot of teams in England will be attracted to him because he's homegrown down there as well. Obviously plays for the Danish national team, but that's one thing to consider as well, the international scene. If he goes to the Euros for Denmark and has a good Euros...
Are you aware of the Barisic's price after the Euros?
Exactly. But
you could Barisic come back from the Euros,
eh? But you could see Matt Riley easily going with Denmark and scoring a few in the group stage, scoring against England. No offence, Meehall, but that would be absolutely lovely for myself, for us Scottish folk. Or do you support that?
I assure you, none taken.
Right, lovely. So hopefully, if Matt Riley's going to do anything at the Euros, hopefully he does it against England because he's in the same group. But I don't know. Right now, would I suspect Athletic Madrid to come back in or a team like that? No, but I could see a Premier League side, maybe a Palace or someone like that coming in from.
I could easily see him going to Aston Villa or
a
team at that level, in which case I think
it has to be Champions League. I think it has to be a Champions League team to take him away from us. Because I think, when you, obviously, like we all do, you kind of pay attention to the guy, you hear what he says. He's quite famous in Celtic circles for saying early season, like he's got a life coach and all the rest of it, and he's got a guru that he taps into and all that. So I definitely think he wants to see himself have a good Champions League season. And this Celtic team is built around him doing well and enhancing his own reputation and his own career. And that's why I said Man United, because even though they're a big team, they're not going to be a Champions League next year, And I think he wants to have a good Champions League next year. I think that's what he's building himself towards. Whether that's with us or someone else is the matter. Aston Villa could, if they hold in top 5. Newcastle, if they were to break in. Tottenham, who knows? But I think one of those teams.
I would say Tottenham would be the obvious one, but except it will never ever. We are lucky that the only player we fell out with him was. Or he fell out with Andrew's not alright. Otherwise, I'd be saying he got to Tottenham immediately.
So I think that's his light at the end of the tunnel, as it were. That's his kind of his evidence he's trying to climb. He wants to have a good Champions League. He wants to. I know he was good for his in this campaign. He was maybe like you said, Meehall, maybe our best performer over the group, but we were rubbish in the group. It didn't actually, it's not like it amounted to much. Or even if you were to go and examine the games, you could see there was tons there. There was he was good and he was effective, or he wasn't below par, as it were. So I don't know if there's that much. As I say, Atletico Madrid being interested, I think they're just trying to be cute in the market because so many of the other teams, like Atletico Madrid, the quarterfinalists, we'll see them in action this week again. But all the other teams at that level, if you look at what Real Madrid are doing, or all these other teams at that level, they are buying younger and younger, and there's fewer and fewer corners of the world to try and unearth guys before they become top end stars. So I think they've maybe got their guy in Vermeeren. Maybe there's another guy they go and get. Maybe they do come back from. I don't see it with them amount of players they actually have in their squad to be able to hang that in. But again, equally, I think O'Reilly, a Champions League team is what we need to be worried about. If we get Champions League football, he's on a big enough contract, and I think Celtic would fancy themselves. If we're getting 30 million offers now, if we do have 8 games in the Champions League and he does very, very well against 2 of the seed pot 4 teams, and he has a good game or 2 against the pot 2, the pot 1 teams here and there at home or away or whatever, then in today's climate and the way that things are moving now, everything's becoming FFP-wise, regulations-wise across Europe, everything's aligning more with the European model, the UEFA thing that we've aligned with, in terms of what England and Italy and all that are doing. Then it makes it way more feasible or easy to imagine that after that we could sell him for something mad, like a Benfica or an Ajax transfer fee, where we get 60 million or something crazy,
Do you think there's something in it? You remember when he signed for us that he was very much like this. He had left Fulham to play MK Dons because he thought that was better for him. So I think when you factor in like what normal, maybe this comes back to the life coach guru shit he was talking about, but like if you factor in what most normal footballers are like, we imagine them to be a certain way, and I just don't know that Matt O'Reilly is like that because the evidence would suggest that he isn't. So maybe it's when we speculate about these things, there's probably something in it that he's different to everybody else as well. So but I agree. If you look as well, I know we spoke about this in the past, Quinny, about like all the work we did between the two transfer windows, you know, from the start of the year to Christmas, locking these guys down to contracts. Like going into next year, we don't have to sell anybody. Like we have to sell anyone because everybody's contract is long. Like who do we lose? Scales, I think, hasn't re-signed, but that's it.
Man United are interested.
What can he like? Does he sweep the floors or?
He's a huge upgrade on Harry Maguire. I don't care what anyone says. Scales greater than Maguire.
Oh, could you imagine Scales running about? Oh my goodness, man! I think with the O'Reilly thing as well, talk about his character.
But again, Soccer Aid, was that not Jeremy Carragher's drive this week? Was he playing in Soccer Aid?
Probably. I think with the O'Reilly, right? You talk about his character. See, when he was asked about it in a press conference at the time, he was really chill and laid back about it. He was like, "Oh yeah, that's cool, but I'm at Celtic, all this stuff." So his head's in Celtic, particularly between now and the end of the season. What the summer brings, we don't know. I'd probably say it's 50-50 at the minute, whether he leaves or not, but it just depends.
But the point there is that we're doing it from strength as well. Like if we lost him, right, I'm not sure that, for example, signing someone like Bernardo would be like a like for like, but you could immediately go and say £6 million. Here's another midfielder who we know is pretty. I mean, you disagree on this, I know, Quinny, but he's like pretty good. I'd say played relatively well in at least in enough games to make me think that he wouldn't be a massive downgrade. It's a relatively risk-free replacement, and then you get all this other money to spend on. Like I think we probably have one too many midfielders. We could definitely go and spend a left back, you know, a goalkeeper, a Adam Idah for slightly less money, a better striker. Like you could put that money in other parts of the team, and still Ronaldo to keep the numbers up.
Definitely feeling that one. And but probably the last kind of segment we've got on the pod notes here is Roger says this is the part of the season where Celtic comes alive, and also we've got the split to kind of go through. We've kind of fleshed out the team where we think the squad is at in a few different ways. Well, what kind of kicks that off, what kind of ushers that in is the semi-final we've got this weekend at Hampden Park against Aberdeen. Obviously, a win there brings a final at the end of the season, which would kind of, then bookmark the end of the season. Again, for a final at Hampden and everything else that would bring. And I was saying to Josh Meehall just before you come on, Celtic hasn't really came alive at the back end of the season over the last 2 years. Under Ange, we normally had the league wrapped up kind of by now-ish, and the split was kind of like party time, just phoning every game in and just kind of taking it easy. So I hope, it seems like Rodgers is definitely different in that. The league's not wrapped up, obviously, that's a joke here, but the team is actually improving as the team's went on, and it does feel like week to week we are getting stronger and better. Coming into the game of the weekend, is this the starting whistle for the title run, or I don't know, is the games at the weekend maybe, is that the first blows, the first shots that have been fired? I don't know. That's kind of where we're at.
I feel like this is the I know, like this is where Rangers tend to do their best collapsing. And I think this is, and I hate the phrase like mentality monsters, blah, blah, blah. But like in the past, and this is something which has transcended managers that we have tended to do, that like when the game is on the line, we tend to do better than they do if there's people in the stadium. So like that is, I don't know if comes alive is the right idea. That sort of implies that we were dead at other points of the season, in which case I'd be asking serious questions about, that this isn't a problem now if you've won games back in October or whatever, but hey, this is where we are. But yeah, I know, I kind of know what he means. And I think like, if you look at it as 5 achievable tasks, like we'll start as favourites in every single game. Like even after the draw in the Rangers game, I was thinking this, I looked at the odds, certainly in Australia anyway, and they were still favourites before the weekend. And I was thinking, but we will start as favourites in every game, including them at home. Yeah. Like, so this doesn't, and that was before they lost. Mm-hmm. So like, I didn't quite, I should have bet on it really, shouldn't I? Yeah. That's what, you see odds that you don't agree with, that probably means that you're pushing that money on it. Yeah. But like, I think, especially now, like I like that we have this one game that doesn't count, that way you get to sort of go, okay, this draws a line. Am I right in thinking there's usually an international break? Have I imagined an international break?
There was
as well?
one like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, there's been one.
Yeah.
But then, didn't we used to go Scottish Cup international break then after the split? Or is that just not happening this time because of the Euros? Maybe it's not.
Yeah.
Anyway. But yeah, I think this is a good sort of reset. And then you can go, okay, so we get this one game now. Like if we lose it, it would be bad, but it's not the end of the world. And you'd rather win the league than the cup, put it that way. Yeah. And they've got quite a tough tie. They've got to play this midweek. They've got to play Hearts. I'd rather be playing Aberdeen than Hearts, put it that way. So yeah, I'm excited about it. I think Aberdeen are rubbish. Like we should beat Aberdeen, and I know I'm tempting fate like anything, but Aberdeen are rubbish. Like we've seen. Like, can I read you their most recent results?
Aberdeen are rubbish, but they drew with us 1 each back in February when they didn't have a manager. So
yeah, but we were also rubbish.
I know, but still, I don't know. I don't want to come back on here next week, giving it the big one, and then we get papped out the cup. But at the same time, we should be putting away Aberdeen. You look at, like you say, their recent record. They've not got a manager in place. Celtic on the up. It should be a formality. We don't know yet. And like you say, it does give you a nice wee reset before the split, because obviously a bit of uncertainty right now regarding the fixtures. We'll know that by the end of the week. And it's four wins. Celtic need to win the league. 4 league wins, because we'll probably have Rangers before the last game of the season. So if you beat them, it opens up a 4-point gap, and then you could win it in the second last game. So it's 4 league wins. Celtic need to win the championship. 4 cup finals. It's what the manager has been stressing. They need to, like he says there, usually come alive. Whether that was debated, I don't know, last season when we get beat 4-2 off Hibs at Easter Road in the second last game of the season. I think we were pretty dead then. But this season they really need to step up towards the end. And this is where it counts. You look at Rangers, 4 points behind going into that game on Sunday, and so much pressure on them. I would say 2 games in hand. You're the one who needs to win them to go back top. They crumble under the pressure. Listen, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow night. It's confirmed that that's going to be at Dens Park, just flashing up there, which should be very interesting to say the least. Dundee don't really have much to play for apart from their pride, because they're in top 6 or potentially European football they have to play for. But this Rangers team were under pressure at the weekend and they cracked. The Celtic team were under pressure at the weekend and they dealt with it well. So if that story can keep up between now and the end of the season, then I think we know where the title could end up. But never say never, because we've seen collapses at this point of the season before, been several years ago. So don't count our chickens before the eggs hatch, is what I would say.
Yeah, I know. I'm with you on that. I think, like, coming into the, we normally end the show with a score prediction. I think coming into cup semi-finals, like with all the Giakoumakis talk we've had in this podcast, like Giakoumakis, some of you might remember his last game, his last goal was a cup semi-final against Kilmarnock. So I don't think this will be Adam Idah's last game or last goal or anything like that. But I was getting images of Idah getting a Giakoumakis type goal.
Has he? Here's a question for those of us who've been away. Has he whipped his top off yet, though? Because there is a standard has been set by Giakoumakis and by
Yeah,
that's what I know. Has he got a gut? Is he embarrassed? Because 3rd in a 3-0 in the cup final. Get it off, Adam. That's what I'm saying.
He'll take it off and show his wee 4-leaf clover Ireland flag tattoo on his shoulder. I'm sure they would love that.
Right into it. So I think I can see Idah getting a goal in this one, and I think, I don't know, but Hampden, the kind of size of the pitch and all the rest of it, whether it is Yang, whether it is Palma, I think we're going to get a lot of time and space in the wide areas, and scoring 4 against St Mirren, I could see that kind of, I like this scoring 3 or more. That's a good kind of rhythm to be in this time of the year. So I think we're going to score 4 again. The clean sheet is definitely part of the game. I'm never too confident on calling, especially when it's a cup game. I know Aberdeen don't fancy themselves coming into this, but it's a cup game. You just cannot rule them out. They'll have that extra, forget everything that's went on. This is our chance, This is our final, They'll have all that stuff going on before the game. So I don't know. I'm going to say maybe Aberdeen score 2. I'm going to say they make it a bit hairy. Maybe it's we need to push on a wee bit. Maybe it goes 2 each at one point, and then
What was the game? Do you remember when we beat Hibs when
4-2.
El Yunusi scored when it was 5-2? It was throwing down.
Yeah, Scott Brown scored right at the end.
Yes, Scott Brown scored. That was a great game. If they do that, I'll forgive Aberdeen 2 goals. That was,
yeah.
Was that? I think there might have been a League Cup semi.
That was a League Cup semi, 2019, the 2019-20 season. It was. We played Rangers in the final a couple of weeks later with the famous Julian offside goal and beat them 1-0.
How we laughed. I'm still laughing now.
I can't believe we got that as well. That is one of the biggest shocks of life, isn't it?
Oh yeah, good job. We've got an hour into this. We've not mentioned the Turkish league's gone for foreign VARs now. So that's. I'm sorry, I can't believe I brought it up. We should have got all the way through without not mention the VAR, etc., because that is. I'm going to leave it this way because I have to deal with this in my day job all the time. Right, we have VAR, the bunker as it's called in rugby league, and it is constantly all anyone wants to talk about. And I just think John Beaton, he had 3 decisions, you got all 3 wrong.
I know. There's been this narrative in mainstream media that John Beaton had a really good game in the Glasgow Derby a couple of weeks ago, but when you look at the decisions that were made, they were all came to through VAR, and VAR had to overrule all of his decisions.
All of his terrible decisions. I know that's why it's there, but Jesus Christ.
How can you argue then that he had a really good game? I must take Clyde One Super Scoreboard or Go Radio, whatever it is, and people are saying John Beaton is brilliant. VAR had to overrule 3-4 of his decisions, so he didn't have a brilliant game.
Yeah.
I strongly disagree with that on the basis of actually watching the game. We get 4 yellow cards, they get none. And if you look at, we doubled them in fouls.
We got
that narrative came because Rogers said that post game. Rogers came out post game saying Beaton had a good game, so he doesn't get in trouble. And then everyone's went, "Oh, well, Rogers has said that, so we'll say that." What's happening?
Me and my brother were following it. I think it was 33 minutes before we even got a free kick, and you were like, "We've had all the ball, and yet somehow." Haven't been fouled.
Yeah,
it's wild. Absolutely wild.
The Nicholas Kuhn yellow card is what puzzled me. He makes a foul. I think it was his second of the game, and Beaton comes over to him and he goes 1, 2, 3, 4. He's made one before it, and he gets booked. But hey ho.
Do you know? So there is a rule in rugby league where if enough of your teammates commit a foul, you can get sent for 10 minutes as a team. So they'll say if you give away 3 penalties in 5 minutes, they'll go. One of you is going next time, and it doesn't matter who does it. See you later, you're off.
Yeah. And
I briefly thought, is that a rule? And I was like, no, that's not a rule in football. That's not a rule. If you do it, there's an individual persistent fouling, but not a team one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I was like, my mind was warped. It was obviously quite late at night here, so my mind was warped. But...
I was going to say, Mike, what is your score prediction for the weekend?
What did I say? 5-2. 5-2. Who is the El Yunusi Dano Shaw? Who's that? I'm going to say that is Nicholas
Forrest.
Oh, I think Forrest might score in that game, actually.
Maeve? I'm going to say 2-1 Celtic. I think it'll be a tight, tough game.
A wee bit tighter.
Yeah.
Well, the things are going to the game. Travel safe. We hope you have a good time, of course. And, catch you next week on the hoops. Hail, hail.